From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
All my life, I have been driven by one dream, one goal, one vision: to overthrow a farm labor system in this nation that treats farm workers as if they were not important human beings. Farm workers are not agricultural implements. They are not beasts of burden to be used and discarded.
Cesar Chavez would have been 81 years old today. 9 states celebrate his birthday as an official holiday. We'll go to Chicago to Dolores Huerta. She co-founded the United Farm Workers with Chavez. Exodus, where will Iraq go next? 1 in 5 Iraqis have fled their homes. We'll speak with journalist Deborah Campbell. She spent 2 months embedded with Iraqi refugees in Syria. And finally, Italian author Loretta Napoleoni on rogue economics. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Iraq, Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr has ordered his Mahdi army to stop fighting, 6 days after Iraqi forces attacked Sadr strongholds in Basra and Baghdad. In exchange, Sadr demanded the Iraqi government free imprisoned members of the Mahdi army, end house raids, and help bring back Shiites displaced from the recent fighting. Despite Sadr's call, mortar attacks continued in Baghdad and Basra. As many as 350 Iraqis died in the past week of Shiite and Shiite fighting. Prior to Sadr's surprise announcement, members of the Mahdi army had threatened to keep fighting until the United States left Iraq.
We will not put down our weapons until the occupiers leave Iraq, and we receive orders from the Honorable Muqtada al-Sadr that the occupiers have left Iraq completely. Then we'll be ready to lay down our weapons. Until then, nothing happens. We receive orders from our commanders, and God willing, we will bring an end to the occupation. We are willing to sacrifice our lives and our families, everything. We will not back down until the last drop, until the last moment. We will keep the city of Basra safe and secure.
The Iraqi military's attempt to push the Mahdi army out of Basra appears to have largely failed. According to CNN, Iraqi security forces control less than a quarter of the city. On Sunday, members of the Mahdi army stormed the state television station in Basra. Images of Iraqi soldiers handing over their weapons were then broadcast. As the Iraqi military struggled in Basra, the U.S. military stepped up its direct involvement by carrying out multiple air raids. Iraqi police reported 8 civilians Saturday when a U.S. warplane strafed a home in the southern part of Basra. Meanwhile, Turkish warplanes and artillery attacked northern Iraq. Turkish officials said 15 Kurdish rebels died in the strikes Thursday and Friday. Turkey has carried out several attacks in northern Iraq since mid-December with the direct support of the United States, which has been providing Turkey with real-time intelligence. Arab leaders meeting in Damascus re-endorsed the 2002 Arab Initiative for Peace with Israel. The plan offers Israel peace and normal relations with all Arab countries in return for withdrawal from all territory captured in the 1967 war. This is Arab League Chief Amir Moussa.
We reiterate that the continuation by the Arab side to present the Arab Peace Initiative is tied to Israel executing its commitments in the framework of the international resolutions to achieve peace in the region.
Successive Israeli governments have either ignored or rejected the offer, which would require Israel to dismantle settlements in the occupied West Bank. Meanwhile, Israel's agreed to remove about 9% of its roadblocks in the West Bank. The announcement came during a visit by Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. Israel currently maintains more than 580 checkpoints and roadblocks in the West Bank, including 30 that have gone up since the Annapolis peace talks. In campaign news, Senator Hillary Clinton has pledged to continue campaigning until the Democratic Convention unless there's a resolution to the Florida and Michigan primaries. In an interview with the Washington Post, Clinton said, quote, "I have no intention of stopping until we finish what we started, until we see what happens in the next 10 contests, and until we resolve Florida and Michigan." Clinton went on to say, quote, "And if we don't resolve it, we'll resolve it at the convention. That's what credentials committees are for." When she was asked if there was a scenario in which she would drop out before the last primaries on June 3rd, Clinton said no. Senator Barack Obama responded by saying, quote, "My attitude is that Senator Clinton can run as long as she wants." Meanwhile, Obama has picked up the endorsement of two more Democratic senators, Bob Casey of Pennsylvania and Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. Pennsylvania holds its primary on April 22nd, Minnesota May 6th. In economic news, Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson plans to release a sweeping new plan to regulate the financial markets. The McClatchy newspapers reports it's the broadest reform of oversight of the markets since the aftermath of the Great Depression. According to press reports, Paulson's plan will merge some federal bank regulators, weaken the agency that regulates the stock market, and put hedge funds under some regulations. Paulson would also set up a new federal mortgage origination commission to oversee mortgage finance. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve has announced it'll make available another $100 billion in short-term loans to banks. The Fed has already provided $260 billion in loans to keep the banks from going under. Government officials are projecting the number of Americans receiving food stamps will reach a record 28 million later this year. Over the past year, more than 40 states saw the number of food stamp recipients rise. A 10% jump in food stamp recipients was recorded in 6 states: Arizona, Florida, Maryland, Nevada, North Dakota, and Rhode Island. In West Virginia, 1 in 6 residents now receive food stamps. Military prosecutors have dropped all charges against a Marine accused of killing 24 unarmed Iraqis, including women and children, in Haditha in 2005. Lance Corporal Stephen Tatum became the 5th Haditha defendant out of 8 to see charges dropped in a case that brought international condemnation on U.S. troops in Iraq. Tatum initially faced charges of unpremeditated murder and negligent homicide. One Marine testified Tatum told him to shoot a group of Iraqi women and children he found on a bed in a closed room. That Marine said he walked away but saw Tatum return and heard a loud noise, possibly gunfire or a grenade. The former Democratic governor of Alabama, Don Siegelman, says politics played a leading role in his prosecution. In his first interview since being released from jail, Siegelman said there had been abuse of power in his case and repeatedly cited the influence of Karl Rove, the former White House political director. Siegelman told the New York Times, quote, "His fingerprints are smeared all over the case." On Friday, Siegelman was released on bond while he appeals a conviction on corruption charges. Critics say he's the target of a political witch hunt. More than 50 former state attorneys general have called for a congressional investigation into Siegelman's case. Zimbabwe's main opposition leaders have claimed victory in an election that could unseat President Robert Mugabe, who's ruled Zimbabwe for 28 years. Full official election results have not yet been released. Provisional findings leaked to The Independent of London last night indicated the main opposition party, the Movement for Democratic Change, had taken 191 of 210 parliamentary seats. In Greece,